Hey everyone, Temporal here, and today I want to cover three different types of GOATS comps. At this point in time, there are of course more than three different types of GOATS comps. Pretty much anything that's within one hero swap of GOATS in the non-flex support spot is considered a GOATS variant. We see May GOATS, Sombra GOATS, Doomfist GOATS, Sniper GOATS. We see lots of different GOATs, but what I want to get into today is specifically the different variants of GOATs based on that flex support, rotating between Moira, Zen, and Anna. I'll cover the original Moira Goats comp first, but before I do that, I think I need to go over a brief explanation of how Goats plays in general. It definitely wants to clump up super tight pretty much always, and if you are not playing into a mirror, you're looking for ways to force brawls onto the opponent's least mobile hero. So you should path through cover to do that to avoid getting spammed out. You should definitely take advantage of speed boost, get on top of that hero, and force a brawl there. If that's not an option because the opponent doesn't have any non-mobile heroes or those non-mobile heroes just aren't accessible, maybe they're on high ground that you can't path to, you're instead going to need to just pressure out the point. If you're playing King of the Hill, you generally want to delay until the point's just about to unlock before you go out onto it, wait in cover until then. On anything else, you can just pressure the points immediately, and therefore, when you're eating spam, you're at least pressuring them by forcing that objective capture, that payload pushing forward, that payload not moving, whatever it is there. At that point, they either have to try and spam you out, which takes literally forever, or they need to put people on the point. That's going to mean tanks to try and contest it. If they put tanks on the point, you just go push them out. If you can force a kill on them, fantastic. If they try and support their tanks and it looks like a real play, absolutely feel free to burn speed boost to chase them out, try and go find a kill, etc. If it doesn't work out, no big deal. You just wander on back to point or you wander back to cover near the point, depending on the game mode. If we flip it and we're playing into the mirror matches goats, instead it's going to be heavily about the ult game. First, positionally though, you are, instead of taking that point at the last second in Koth, going to want to take the point early. Generally, the team that has point control and has to be pushed into as goats in the mirror has a pretty big advantage. But in the goats mirror matchup, it is mostly going to be about the ult game. It's specifically going to be about hitting bash shatters or bash the diva and grab, or throw out self-destruct and bash the Rhine at the last second to get self-destruct value. Even getting one kill out of a tank ult is enough to turn the goats fight, and it's absolutely worth it to do so because it is hard to get kills in properly played goats mirror matches. The other team is, of course, going to try to answer your bash ult plays with their own tools. They can, of course, bash your Briggs with their own. Doing that at the right moment can stop the play, or it can get them projected bubble back, and projected bubble can, of course, block bash. You're going to play around this. You can do that in a couple different ways. You can notice when the Briggs has wandered too far away to protect the Rhine or the Diva that you're interested in bashing. You can also notice that if the team is never using projected barrier and always trying to hold it to block your bash, your Rhine can mostly just swing for free and get a huge ult lead. So that'll have to be answered. Now I want to get into the difference between the three flex supports in GOATS. Moira Goats was the original choice, and it was run by the team that the comp has been named after, Goats. I do think she's the worst choice now for running in a GOATS comp, but she does make good training wheels for learning the composition. If you're trying to win a GOATS mirror match with Moira, you need to make sure that you are maximizing the cleave value, specifically onto your Reinhardt and Zarya. The objective is to win the race to Earthshatter and or grab and quickly get those ults off to win that fight. That's how you're looking to win that. You maximize cleave on those two to enable them getting their ults quickly, and if you get coalescence before they get their ults up, which will happen somewhat frequently, you can go ahead and use that immediately to continue to enable them. Bonus points if you're also able to capture the opposing flex support in your beam, but the priority really is to pocket and enable those two with it. As soon as they get their ults up, they do need to find a window to use them, or the team needs to enable them to use them because you do need to get that first kill, like we talked about. As a pacing thing, if Covalescence runs out and you don't have Grab or Shatter up, your tanks aren't being aggro enough, they're not taking advantage of your fantastic cleave healing, and they need to do so. That's something you guys need to adjust. So when you're playing this against the Anagoats variant, it's a very tight race for that first support ult. You can win that race, but to do so, maximize that cleave, and then your diva needs to absolutely focus on eating that nade. If Anna gets off a couple defensive nades that boost her healing output, she's going to catch up or more likely pass your Moira on the race to her ult, and her team will win with Nano. On the flip side, if she gets an offensive nade off, they can potentially use that to win the fight if they're already in the brawl before you get your ults up, and they will win the fight like that. Against Zen Goats, you're going to have more healing available, so it would be easy to win the race to ultimates. But what you run into is they're not actually looking to win off of ultimates. They're looking to win the neutral game with Discord, and they have the tools to do so. That brings us to Zen Goats. It's mostly popular as the European style of goats. It's very strong in the mirror matchup. It has the best tools for winning the neutral fight in Discord Orb. If we ignore counterplay for a second, Zen Goats is looking to get Discord Orb on a target. Usually it's going to be Reinhardt. Then do a countdown, bash, focus fire, and release a volley of orbs that was charged during that countdown as headshots into that Reinhardt. That's going to equal the Reinhardt being dead, or the Reinhardt being so close to being dead that the only ways back in are support ults or maybe a defensive Antinade, and that one's going to be tight. So bringing counterplay back in, we already covered. Antinade's an option. There's also, of course, projected barrier, bash, and you could say playing near corners where Ryan can duck to clear Discord Orb. That's not real. You're both playing a brawl comp. You're just going to chase them right around the corner and continue to make your play there. When we look at Bubble, a Bubble, of course, could clear the Discord Orb, could clear the stun. That's a fantastic answer, so you're going to need to make sure that that's out. Again, if a team's holding on to Bubble too tightly, you just bubble your Rhine to continue enabling him to swing, and then they have to go back to playing the Bubble game. That leaves Bash. If they're trying to bash your Briggs to prevent her from getting the bash off at the right moment, you could potentially bubble your own Briggs. Then she gets the bash off for free as long as they don't have bubble, and then you get to continue your play as planned. Against Moira Goats, Zen Goats is looking to execute its Discord combo before they can get Covalescence up. It generally can and will do so, leading to a one-team fight there. It wants to do the same thing against Anagoats, but do keep in mind that Anagoats has their own tools. They're more dangerous than Moira Goats in that they can make their own plays with Nade and Sleep Dart. Still, your play is easier to make, more consistent to make. Zen Goats does have a favorable matchup against Anagoats too. So while Zen Goats is the best in the mirror when it comes to Goats matchups, it's the worst against non-Goats matchups. The reason for that is it has much lower sustain. It's much easier to spam out a Zen Goats comp because Zen just can't keep up with the healing the same way that Anna or Moira can when that spam's coming in. And it's also more vulnerable to a real dive. The focus fire burst of dive has a better chance of killing something. It's still not a great chance of killing something because you are a goats comp, but there is no denying that it's harder to save a target when you have weaker single target healing with that Zenyatta compared to the Anna or Moira. So finally, that brings us to Anagoats. Most of this has been covered by talking about the mirrors from the other two flex support perspectives, but it is the most versatile of the three goats comps that we're covering here. It can mostly keep up in healing or ult charge with Moira Goats, and it has win conditions that aren't ults like Zen Goats does, though, again, they're harder to get those win conditions off. Cooldown based, hard to hit, etc. It's also got infinite sustain, which means it's not really vulnerable at all to double spam comps. Yes, double spam comps will wear through your Rhine shield, use up your Diva Matrix, force out your Zarya bubbles. But unlike Moira, Anna doesn't run out of P. Unlike Zen, Anna has a lot of healing, can keep up with most of that even as your other resources tend to wear down. Eventually, they will force a kill, but by the time that happens, you and your teammates have rode the payload through the first checkpoint, or whatever the case may be. So it's really not particularly worried about that. Though, do keep in mind you have to peel a little harder for your Anna than you would for a Moira. And the last thing I want to go over is the nano change was absolutely huge for the value of Anna goats. Nanoing a tank, Reinhardt or Zarya, when they are overextended in a rough situation, low on health in the middle of a bunch of enemy tanks, turns it from a situation where the opponent was about to punish them to a situation where your Rhine or Zarya now has superpowers and lots of juicy targets to farm ult off of or kill. It's pretty much always going to demand an ult in response from the opposing team, or they just will find a kill. And if that answering ult is Sound Barrier, Transcendence, maybe Grab to keep your Reiner Zarya still, yes, they're now no longer going to get a kill, but they're still probably going to be able to stay alive and farm up their ult, which they get to then use to either win that fight or the next fight. So it is a better ult, obviously, than, say, Covalescence when it comes to how those match up. So that's what I've got here today. If you have questions and are watching on Twitch, I'll be going live to answer them in just a minute. Otherwise, feel free to drop a comment and let me know what you'd like to see next. I'm happy to cover just about anything in organized play. Thanks, guys. Temporal out.